Thank you for downloading this episode about Haunted by Chuck Palahniuk. Before you continue, I think you deserve a warning. This is the second time we take a stab at this book. The first time was episode 24. And on that episode, I could stomach only 4 short stories from this book. This time, though, Paul made me read all of it, so we went over 24 short stories. And it is still one of the most vile, disgusting things I have ever read in my life. So if you don't like explicit content, swearing, gore, uncomfortable subjects, just get out of here. This episode is not for you. So switch it off now. You've been warned. Come back on the next episode. Welcome to another episode of the Mind Like Books podcast. Paul came back just to force me through this again, and I couldn't deal with it. So today we're discussing Haunted by Chuck Palahniuk, a horror, ? Minimalist fiction, adult short stories, ? This has 419 pages, released in 2005, and this is one of our favorite episodes of all time on the podcast, most popular episodes, because people just love to hear me squirm. Check out episode 24, on the original time we recorded this. And this has also been the only time I have recorded an episode about a book, and I haven't read the whole book. And people have told me very much, and people have held it against me. So I have promised to give this a fair go and read the actual whole book. And we've been planning this for a long time, but I've been putting this off because anytime I think about it or read this, it makes me horribly sick. So I've done it. How many times have you read it, Paul?
Yeah, I was just saying, maybe I've read it at least 3, but I think different stories I've read probably several more times than that.
Has it changed at all while you reread it, your opinion?
No, I think thinking about it today and how you kind of seem to visualize things so deeply and get all upset by it, but I think I just enjoy the atmosphere of the book, actually.
Yeah.
And the writing style as well.
Yeah.
It's funny. I just find it amusing, mostly. Yeah.
People's guts spilling out, it's amusing.
Well, it's over the top, so it's absurd, I think. I don't understand why people get so upset or disgusted by it. Well, one story I can, but the rest, nah.
Somehow it just gets under my skin, man. I can't deal with it. So this time I bought the audiobook because I didn't feel like reading it, and I had to push through it because I wouldn't make myself start even. And I went for a run and I listened to the first episode again the first short story again, because I just let the book play. I got so sick again. I don't know what it is with the first story. Can't deal with it. So for Paul, it's just amusing.
Well, talking about this before is like, if I watched, like, I was thinking about movies I've seen today and that I can replay them in my mind. And things like, I accidentally watched Hellraiser 2 on TV.
Accidentally watched.
And the scene on the mattress, I can still see it in my mind so clearly.
Yeah,
it disturbs me.
That is pretty wild. That is pretty bad.
And I was thinking about RoboCop today, and the scene where the guy gets covered in acid and he's walking out and gets hit by the car. Yep. Have you seen that? Yeah,
of course.
I can see it so clearly in my mind. And it disturbs me. But with this book, I just imagine it the way I want to imagine it.
Somehow it gets under my skin much more than the special effects. I don't know why.
Yeah, it's really weird. Because those movies, I can just replay it as basically a picture in my brain, and it disturbs me so much.
It's like when you watch Hellraiser, it's vile, it's disgusting, and I have to agree that Hellraiser 2 is one of the most horrible, like, gory things I've ever seen in my life. But it's still, like, surreal. It's very difficult to imagine these things would actually happen. But while you read this book, it's very easy to imagine these things would actually happen. So that's why it makes me sick.
I don't
because
think
it's
so.
Like those things probably happen somewhere and are probably happening like somewhere again, and that's what makes me like very squeamish about it.
Yeah, but all sorts of things could be happening in the world. It's just a work of fiction.
But Cenobites from hell are probably not strolling through LA, right? It's not.
Yeah, but but they look so disturbing. It looks so realistic, and my brain can't forget it. My brain doesn't distinguish between this is fake and this is real. But a book, it's just fiction.
Fair enough.
All right. Just the way brains work, I think, kind of, it's amusing.
One more plug, check out episode 21 about Hellraiser, Hellbound Heart, where we discussed the original story that the Hellraiser movie is based on. But today, came back together to discuss Haunted, and I dare to say one of Paul's favorite books, one of my most hated books.
We seem to have very opposite tastes.
And the audience demanded it, so today we shall get through it. We shall discuss all of the stories, I dare to say, very briefly. Before we get into... Sorry, come again?
I was going to say you're going to have to jog my memory a bit today, like I did with yours last time.
Okay.
Yeah, I probably remember things quite well.
Okay. So before we get into it, what have you been up to, Paul? Do you want to plug your YouTube channels or talk about your art or discuss anything else you've been reading briefly, or are you doing okay?
Yeah, I'm building like a food truck to like a coffee car. I've been spending the past couple of months doing that.
So if you are in Japan, or if you come to Japan, definitely get some of that Paul's coffee. You put some links in the description.
Yeah, I'll probably set up an Instagram account for it soon and everything, because I'm going to be fired from my job in a couple of months, but that's another story.
Yeah,
so, anyway.
sorry about that. Sure, you'll live a happier life with better beginnings.
Yeah, I'm sure so. I'm not being fired for any incompetence thing. It's a contractual tax argument that some of us are having with the company. And the company have been basically a bunch of bullies. So I've decided to take a stand and tell them to shove it.
Look on the bright side. You'll have a successful business. You can make all the coffee now. Travel the world with your food truck, your coffee truck.
Travel around a small area in Kanagawa, yes. So
I'm sure it's going to be
yes.
wonderful. I'm already jealous because as a programmer, I just sit in the office. I'd love to go to places with a coffee truck.
I think I'm tired of dealing with people, to be honest. So yeah, just working in the kitchen sounds all right to me at the moment.
Yeah, it sounds great. I wish you all the best. So,
all right, thanks.
Hopefully, in a few months, we'll have an update from you on the podcast where you've made all the money and made it like a huge business of coffee selling in Japan.
Or living on the street, or living in the coffee truck.
Yep, awesome. Can record the podcast out of the coffee truck as well. I'll come by bicycle, you can record it there.
Okay, great.
All right, so let's get into like the general impressions of this book. I wanted to say that the whole time I had a very different image or opinion about this book. When I first read it as a teenager, I got very sick. We talked about all that on our previous episode. And then I always said that it's very worrying for me that all these stories or the whole book is too real. Like it's like dirty secrets of the journalistic underworld, and people are like saying things that probably happened, and it's not fact, but it's probably not completely fiction. And the worrying part is that somewhere it happened, and that's very concerning.
You're a fan of Skeptic magazine, don't you? Michael Shermer.
Yes. I never read the magazine, but I like Michael Shermer. Yes.
Yeah, because I was watching an interview with him the other day, and he was talking about how the problem with conspiracy theories is that often a lot of them turn out to be true, like the government doing LSD experiments on its citizens and stuff like this. So I was thinking about some of them sound over the top, but maybe some of them could be based on real.
Do you feel
things.
like most of these stories were based on truth?
Well, I mean, like some of them, like setting people up for like planning like pornography or something on people to set them up. Yeah, sure, that thing's happened in the past.
So that's why I was always so worried and hesitant to even read this, because it's very, very off-putting to me that these things could actually be happening, like I keep saying. And that's what I thought the whole time. But now that I have actually put time into it and read the whole book through and found like all the details and like actually digested the whole thing, it's completely flipped my opinion, and I feel like it's completely unrealistic, over the top, and too edgy for its own good, just trying to shock the reader for any shock value possible. Like, it's such a mess, this book, especially like some part in the ending. Like I didn't know there's such a mess of a plot line and like what happens. And the writers, I had no idea this is all this went down. So much stuff and so much gore for no reason sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I think it's, as you said, it's just, maybe he's just trying to be edgy and it just comes off kind of humorous.
He's trying to be really edgy, like for the sake of edginess by any means necessary.
I think it was written a long time before the whole kind of edgelord kind of thing. I think he's just being him.
He's just being him. So I meant to say that there are 3 parts. We mentioned briefly on our previous episode. There is the like through line story of the writers coming to the writers' retreat. Then there is like a poem each time in front of the story, and then there is the stories itself. So the stories itself, or themselves, they are pretty good. I've enjoyed most of them. They are be very blunt or like graphic or something. They also seem to serve a point, and they seem like an interesting exercise in unusual writing or like unusual stories. The poems, surprisingly, I don't mind. Like, I don't care about poetry, but it's not bad. Like, okay. But the through line, plot line that connects it all together, I think it's complete rubbish. I can't deal with it. Do you like that plot line?
No, it's not the highlight of the book, but I think it was just a device that sort of tie it all together.
It starts a little innocent, then it goes a little off the rail, and then it goes super hard to go super off the rails, super down into hell. It's so bad.
Yeah, it gets pretty absurd at the end.
And I didn't know that it's most of the book. The stories are so short. It's usually like a few pages, some of the stories, and the stuff in between is the long part. And I didn't know that was the case. So I think it's like...
It doesn't feel like that. Maybe it's just not very, memorable, I think.
Yeah, and so much goes on. Like, so much stuff happens. And at the end of the day, it's like, oh, they try to just like mutilate themselves, kill themselves, just do horrible things to each other for the sake of art.
Well, for the sake of fame.
For the sake of fame, okay. But
and fortune,
like what they actually did and how it all came together and like the plot twist at the end, I couldn't care. Like it was just like gore and gore and gore, and then it seems completely nonsensical to me.
Yeah, sure, but it's fun.
So I was kind of surprised. So you still had fun with it, even with this part.
Yeah. It's not the highlight of the book. As I said, I think it's just a way to bring it all together. But yeah, at the end, it's kind of ridiculous.
It is
the
ridiculous.
Twist too is like, what? How did he pull that off? But anyway, did I mention the twist in the first podcast we did?
Probably not.
Okay, but I mentioned about him that he's not actually who he is.
Yeah, I think you mentioned that, yes. But you didn't really go into it.
Yes.
So we'll spoil it all in the second part.
Well, I'm sure if you're listening to this, you probably listened to the first one anyway. So
I wanted to quickly talk about the writer. I was trying to look at some news, and I wanted to like have some kind of an update about Czech Palahniuk. One thing I didn't know that happened a few years back is that a guy who was responsible for publishing his books stole a bunch of money, and he was charged with embezzlement, and he got like $4 million from Czech Palahniuk or something like that. Or
yeah, he's broke for a while. Actually,
really rough.
Yeah.
So the agency that helped him publish his books, so Czech Palahniuk was pretty much broke after that, and he was suing them, and there was a bunch of stuff going on. So that's awful. I didn't know. I put a picture in our notes. He looks very fed up. That was from the interview when that happened. He's wearing his white hat. I can't deal with him with his white hat. He looks like from a children's story. And he looks so judgmental. Like he's so fed up with this whole ordeal. So this happened maybe 2018, I think. So that's a while back. So hopefully he's recovered. He seems like he's doing okay.
I think he's doing it right now. Yeah.
So recently he wrote 2 books. One of them universally loved, and the other one universally hated. So I wanted to quickly discuss them. That's like the 2 latest books. So one of them is The Invention of Sound you just mentioned from 2020.
I read that one. Yes.
So what would you say about it? Would you recommend it?
If you like him.
I do.
Chuck, yeah, sure. I would recommend it, definitely.
Is it less or more disgusting than Haunted?
No, Haunted's pretty hard to beat, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, you're gonna have to do something pretty grotesque to beat Haunted, I think. No, I think it's more like kind of a weird kind of... It's got really dark elements, but I don't think they go into... I don't recall any kind of graphic, gory, extremely gory moments. But it's a really sinister, dark kind of book with kind of a huge conspiracy theory and stuff like that. So yeah, you can kind of imagine what's going on, but they don't kind of go into too much detail about it. But
I'd love to read it, so if you're up for it, we can do it on one of the future episodes. This is something I have had on my list for a long time.
We can do it from the back of the truck. Okay.
Yep, definitely, let's do that. So to tease a little bit, this one is about a daughter that gets lost. The father's looking for her, and at the same time there's somebody trying to manufacture a perfect scream or something like that. And it's like about Hollywood and how art can go too far. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, that's a pretty good summary, I think. It's talking about basically a sound effects artist and her family. And she's the daughter of quite a famous one, and she sells screams.
Yeah, I heard.
How does she get the screams? Yeah. So anyway, but you read it. It kind of, it's not what it seems.
Sounds very much Palahniuk, so I'm very curious. Love to know what that's about in detail. So coming up on a future episode, the other book he's released last year It's called Not Forever, but For Now. Everybody hates this so much. It's got like all the worst reviews. People are ranting left and right, saying it's one of the worst things they've ever read. They're like disgusted. Everybody's saying that he's just trying to be edgy again and like shock the reader by any means necessary. People are so upset about this. So have you heard anything about this book?
I'd probably like it. No, I saw he released it when I was following him on Twitter, of course, biggest fan. Never replies to me. Anyway, so I'd probably really like the book.
I think you'd like this, yeah.
I haven't heard anything. Yeah. I saw it when he released it, but I just kind of forgot about it. But yeah, I should pick it up. And I was looking for something to read, so maybe this be a good listen while I'm working on the car.
Yeah. Let's do it. So this one is supposed to be a satire about professional killers, and people keep writing online like, oh my god, this is so repetitive, so disgusting, he keeps repeating the same gimmicks to gore and shock the readers. People hate it so much, I can't even deal, how could I even finish this book? And all those people who are ranting, they did finish the book, by the way, so they nobody forced them to read it. So I feel like even though it's supposed to be shocking and disgusting and distasteful or tasteless, then people still finished it, so it still kept their interest.
Yeah, well, that's maybe better than Haunted, because a lot of people complained about that and couldn't finish it.
Yep, they did finish this one.
Yeah, I see a lot of hate for that book as well. So yeah, whatever. You know, he's not trying to write for everyone.
Yep, that's why we like him. Exactly. He's writing what he likes to write.
You have your audience, and yeah, that's it.
I watched a quick interview this year that was about the latest book he released, and they were trying to kind of like ask him about what his response to all these haters and how does he feel about his book. And there was this lady doing the interview, and she apparently didn't know anything about him at all, and she didn't know anything about anything he's ever written, and she kept asking very naive questions, and she said, would you describe your books to be romantic, or would you describe your books to be scary? What would you describe your books to be like? And he just like sighed.
I think he would describe himself as a romantic.
And then he said, oh, I think my books are exhausting. So I think that's a very good answer to what his books are like. At least to me, I am definitely exhausted after these books.
Really? I just feel like I want
more.
You're
energized and motivated. Your life has meaning afterwards.
Yeah. I'm not going through all this shit. Things aren't so bad.
So before we start discussing the actual plot and the story, I wanted to ask you a question about Haunted. So what is the book trying to do? Like, let's dismiss all this. Like, is it trying to disgust? Is it trying to shock? Is it trying to whatever? But I was trying to like write down, if I were to say, what is this book trying to say? Like something meaningful. I wrote down like a few things. I don't know if you saw them. So what would you think of if you were to answer this question? Like, what is this book trying to say? What is like the message behind it? So one of the things I wrote down was that artists often drive themselves to like the edge of sanity, distraction, however you want to call it. And this is just trying to depict that in a very extreme manner. So you already mentioned that the people in the book try to sensationalize what they're doing to the most extreme point and hoping that will achieve fame or make them like good artists. So I guess that's something the book is trying to say, that it's very easy to take art to extremes just for the sake of the popularity of it.
I think that could be a point, but I think I mentioned in the first podcast we did that all he was trying to do was create this sort of like, you know, he was an admirer of Poe and wanted to create like a collection of horror stories kind of thing. So I'm not sure he was actually trying to say anything. I think he was just going for the shock value.
Okay.
But I think, yeah, you could pull out themes of the book. Yeah, of course, like, you know, the desire for fame, dangers of groupthink, being a victim could be one as well, which kind of a bit ahead of its curve, actually, or ahead of its time, I think, because now the whole victimhood thing is sort of gives you social credit. So he's kind of like, you know, predicting that kind of trend a bit, I think. So yeah, you could find a lot of themes in this book, I think. But I don't think he's going for an overall theme or anything.
I think inevitably every book that's not complete trash does it. Willingly or intentionally. There's always something that you take away from it, right? So, and I think this book is better than the sum of its disgusting parts and shock value. I think there is something to be like understood and thought about. And
yeah, I mean, if you can take away certain things of a book, and the writer could have sort of wasn't actually aiming or subconsciously writing that into the book, I think that's a sign of a good book, that, you know, people can read so many things into it.
I thought that this was the book he mentioned was the reason he even wanted to write anything like this. and also the reason why he keeps getting banned from all these public readings and like writers' meetings. And that is that many people are victims and they have experienced trauma so bad that they can't even dare to talk about it. And having the ability to talk about something like that or know that other people also have this issue kind of makes it easier to deal with it and cope with it and have other people to talk about with. So that's like a big thing, I think, in all his books. And he keeps talking about himself. So that's what I thought was one of the biggest points why he wrote this. So last point I quickly want to mention is that it's depicting very extremely how easy it is to have some kind of descent into madness in a group of people who are completely just shut out from any reality. So like the group mentality of the writers group and how easy it is to go crazy while other people are supporting it is kind of easy to see. So that would be something that it's also saying.
You mean like a cabin fever?
Exactly.
People go so crazy, like locked up in a place.
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
And like kind of supporting.
I can't even stay in my house for one day.
Supporting each other unwillingly, just like going along the ride and being more and more crazy, not being able to distinguish what is even crazy anymore.
True.
Yeah, so as usual, I have to ask,
Definitely.
Would you recommend this? I wouldn't. Still, I would recommend it even less after I finally read it. I know.
You know my answer.
I think some of the stories are very different and very poignant and very memorable and very well written. And if you read only some of the stories, maybe if you just read only the stories, it would be kind of fun. But the whole storyline with Mr. Wittier and like all this, I never read before. I ignored most before, and now that I know, I am very disappointed or like very put off by it.
Really? I would recommend reading it. I'd recommend reading it by a pool.
Oh my God.
I recommend reading it while using some beautiful knives while cutting up dinner. Or while enjoying an onsen or something. Yeah, all these things. Or if you've got really bad allergy problem one day, listen to that book. Cheer you
Okay.
up. So.
I would definitely not recommend it as I did. Go to work on the train and not being able to move because it's too crowded and have too many jackets and layers and being blown hot air on the face. And then the train got stuck and I got so sick and I couldn't move because there were so many people and I couldn't like stop the recording and I kept listening about all these guts. Oh my God, I almost died on the train. It happened to me like 3 times because I listened to it every day on the morning commute. And in Japan, the trains are so packed you can't even move your arms. So I was forced to listen to these stories without any help. So not
forced to. You're waiting for such a victim.
Yes, exactly.
No one's coming to save me. I'm forced to listen to this book while going to my comfortable.
Exactly. So let's get into the spoilers. I'd like to look at the storyline that's connecting all the stories together first, and then quickly go over the short stories and discuss some of our favorites. I'm curious which were your favorites that we never got a chance to talk about.
Didn't I mention the writer's workshop?
You did, but I was very squeamish and disgusted, and I was trying to end the discussion as quickly as possible. I mostly ignored what you said. So this is... This is my way to make up for it.
Ridiculous. All right.
You kept trying very seriously to explain everything, and I was like, yeah, just the end. Bye. That's it.
Well, I had to cut out completely one short story we did because you couldn't remember anything about it.
So I know now. I have read it. Last time I was very hard, very strongly trying to ignore everything. So I pushed through this time.
All right. Well done.
So the story starts with Edward, and it's an invitation to a writer's retreat, and it's inviting people to go there, pack their one suitcase, not more, and have a chance to get better at writing and write their next big masterpiece.
Well, it's like, come write your masterpiece, no distractions, everything provided. So it sounds quite enticing.
So the people who join are somehow like really bad people. They call themselves like anti-heroes or like I like the premise at the beginning. I didn't know that was the case. So they each have like a dark story or something bad happened to them or something terrible they have to tell. And they even have like superhero nicknames that are completely anti-hero like traits. So I love the nicknames of the people who joined the group.
Not all of them are bad people. Well, half of them are bad people, I guess. Not all of them are bad.
I feel like all of them are bad.
Some Godfrey's not a bad guy. He just likes jacking off in the pool. Just had an accident, that's all. Packed his porn on his suitcase as well. Because we didn't have the internet back then so much. So anyway.
So I wanted to mention some of the names, and I lost it.
We got St. Guthrie, Mother Nature, Miss America, Lady Bag Lady, the Earl of Slander, the Duke of Vandals, Director Denial, Reverend Godless, the Matchmaker, Sister Vigilante, Chef Assassin, Comrade Snarky, Agent Tattletale, the Missing Link, Countless Foresight, the Baroness Frostbite, and Miss.
I'm already getting a little sick just thinking about what they did or what happened.
Which name did you like,
the
best?
Comrade Snarky and like the Lady Frostbite is pretty bad. And Bag Lady. It's all very clever. I like the premise. I completely, that was completely lost on me the first time I read it. I completely skipped this part. And like this like giving yourself fake names to like highlight what they've done is pretty clever.
So last time we talked about the Earl of Slander, we tried to do Director Denial, but you couldn't remember anything. You're so traumatized by the whole thing that I had to scrub it. Which one else? Oh, Comrade Snarky, which you got really uncomfortable by the whole thing.
Just like this one, I was uncomfortable. All of them, I'm uncomfortable.
I think we left it there. Yeah.
So they all go to this retreat, and this is supposed to be a reference to like an event from the 1800s where Mary Shelley and Lord Byron and Claire Clement, like a bunch of writers came together, and it was supposed to be like really, really bad weather, so they got kind of stuck in the mansion. And they just kept writing, and that's when Frankenstein and the Vampire was written.
Oh, there's rumors that Mary Shelley didn't actually write Frankenstein, but it's just probably bullshit. But anyway,
same kind of deal. So Mr. Wittier is the organizer. He kind of like welcomes them to the mansion, and he says, "Oh, I'm gonna lock you in here for 3 months. All the amenities, all the things you need are here. There's food in the fridge. Everything is taken care of, but you can't leave. And take this as the 3 months to write your magnum opus. I'm gonna do everything in my power to support you, but you have to stay here and you have to write your best thing you've ever written." So first, it's kind of okay. They keep talking to each other. Each time one of them tells a story, and that's when we get the actual short stories. Each time there is like a poem in front of it, which, by the way, they never mentioned who writes the poems. I assume the same person.
Yeah, I didn't really give much thought, to be honest, but I assumed it was the person who actually, the character.
Yeah, because I was expecting them to be like trying to one-up each other with the poetry, or like somebody would make a point out of what is the poetry trying to say, or they never talk about the poetry, so it's kind of like outside of the scope of the story. I didn't understand why it was there, to be honest, like at all.
Okay. Yeah, I think, as I said, he just sort of wanted to create a texture of different things, but anyway.
Yeah, I didn't mind it.
You could take it out and probably you're not really losing anything, but yeah, I think it's just giving a little bit more depth to the character. I guess.
It's like a flavor, like to introduction to the story, but it never told me anything. I was expecting at least one of the poems to say something, and never really happened.
No, as I said, I think it just gives you sort of like a characteristic or something.
Yeah. So then the things kind of escalate. So what happens is they start getting all these ideas we kind of mentioned already, that if they are going to make life more difficult for themselves, then they'll have more motivation to write better and be better artists. And it goes to the extreme of if they have something traumatic to live through, then when people find out about it, then they'll probably talk about them, and then they'll make the writers more famous and things.
Maybe make it to a TV show or a movie or something. They get the rights for that. Yeah. So.
All of them are in pretty bad shape to begin with, and then they start to like sabotage all the resources, like the food they throw away, and they poison some of the food, and they do all kind of bad stuff. So they keep getting more and more sick.
Yeah, and they kind of break all the locks and damage all the plumbing and basically sabotage all the food. So
they don't like plan it together, but they have this like group mentality, and when one person does it, then the other writer also does it even more and more, and it like escalates.
Yeah, they don't know who's doing what. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Then at one point, Mr. Wittier is found dead, and they are pretty shocked.
Well, no, he overeats or something, and then he has what do they call it? Like,
I think they said ruptured stomach, but I have no idea what that means.
Yeah, that's right.
I can't imagine what that means.
Yes. Yeah, we later found out that it was like a fake death. Yeah.
So they assume he's dead, but he's not really dead, and he disappears.
Yeah, that was one part of the story I didn't particularly like, because he dies and they put him somewhere, and then how does he like? It's the most elaborate faking of a death, and then he just somehow reappears, I guess, and he's been like watching them.
It didn't make much sense to me, to be honest. Exactly.
No, that was the only part of the story I probably would criticize. It's an interesting twist, but it's not particularly believable the way it was done, I thought. I mentioned in the first podcast we did that he appears to be an old man, but he's not. And he was like a 13-year-old boy who's been blackmailing women, middle-aged women that he's been sleeping with.
That's one of the short stories, yes.
He's been fucking. He was fucking these nurses and stuff, and then blackmailing, saying, well, actually, I'm only 13 years old, and you've committed statutory rape, so pay up, or I'm going to tell. And he's amounted all this massive money.
And he's just having fun with it by torturing writers, I guess. Like, I don't know what he's going on about it.
Well, he said he was I think he was so bored. That,
I guess.
Could be. Yeah, I guess so.
Nothing better to do than watch people die in a mansion.
Maybe so. What's the disease he got? Progeria or something. Or Hutchinson-Gilford syndrome. Something that causes like advanced aging or something.
Yeah, so up until this point, I was kind of along for the ride, and then things like get really off the rails, and people start like mutilating each other, eating each other, killing themselves. Horrible stuff happens, and just all for the sake of, okay, the more we suffer, the more horrible things we live through, the more exciting, sensationalized story it will be in the news later, is the premise.
Just like life.
Okay. I guess.
Isn't it? Maybe it's a metaphor for life.
But that's the point I don't understand. Like, if they were to like manufacture a horrible story for the news, that would be like the viral sensation. They should have some proof, or they should have something.
Well, the whole proof was that this psychopath Brendan Wittier, or Mr. Wittier, has locked us away.
But at this point, they think he's dead. So how do they even justify that they're still locked up in there when he's not even there? Like, it doesn't make sense.
Well, because they've broken all the locks and everything like that, so they can't get out. They're waiting for someone to come and rescue them.
Okay, so they'll be rescued, and then they'll ask them like, "Oh, what happened?" And they'll say, "Oh, we were tortured, but you didn't have to kill each other. Like, that's not, the guy was already dead. So what are you going on about?" Like, it seemed to me like if they were rescued, the press would think they're just a bunch of lunatics. They wouldn't be.
Who killed who? Did someone kill each other?
Yeah, they poison each other. Then they like cut off each other's body parts and they eat them and stuff. It's awful.
I thought only one guy did like a self-mutilation. Oh, and there's eating. Well, one woman appeared dead, and they kind of started to eat her.
It's like every single disgusting, terrible, life-threatening thing that can happen happens. So first they don't have anything to eat, and they get poisoned, and they get malnutrition. Then some people pull their nails off their fingers, some people cut off their fingers, some people cut off their arms. And there's literally a line in the story which made me laugh, that somebody literally like passes out from not eating, and when they come to, they are fed their own ass, and it's all for the joke to be said, "Oh, you've served me my own ass." That's great. Like what the fuck? Like, remember that part?
So yes, of course I remember. So forgot the woman's name, which one? But she appeared dead. So chef assassin cut off some parts of her buttocks to microwave and to eat. And suddenly she wakes up, and they're like, "Oh shit, she's not dead." And she came down, and she's like, "That smells good. What is that?" And they're like, "Oh, here you go." And she ate it. Yeah.
I didn't see the point in this. And then one of the characters is pregnant, and then they keep trying to like save her, or she's trying to give birth, but then it's a stillborn child, I think. I don't even know. Stuff just happens and happens.
Yeah, she loses the baby. Yeah, and you can imagine what they do. Anyway,
it's just like,
I thought we were going to go through the stories instead of you whining about it.
But that's like, I went to sum up this part. So stuff goes down, and I felt like I was so tired of this during the end. Like I was like, okay, interesting story, and then a bunch of this again, a bunch of people locked up in a house trying to like mutilate each other again for no reason other than being famous. But
I think people do that
at some
all
point,
the time, though.
It must have occurred to them that if they're not surviving this, then it's a little bit missing the point of them becoming famous, right? Like, I get it that if they were suffering and then they would be rescued, and they would become famous because that's what they've been through. Okay, I get that premise. But if none of them survived, then it's missing the point a little bit. It's like, how many survived? Like 2 at the end? Like, all of them died. It's insane.
There's enough of them to like kind of go back in when Miss Sneezy tries to leave at the end with Mr. Whittaker. There's enough of them to bring her back in and break off the lock so they can continue their suffering. So I'm not sure how many of them died at the end, but still quite a few of them.
Quite a few, but it's less than half, definitely.
But this isn't like, I think, as I said, I think this was just to tie it together. It wasn't the highlight of the story. Yeah, there's some funny parts in it. Who was the guy who was gonna keep trying to? He's got a machete or a knife, and he's got his dick out.
I was waiting for you to bring up the cat.
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. Which character was that? Was it the missing link?
I don't know who it was.
Someone else.
Yeah, but you're right.
Yeah. Finally, when they're getting to do it, someone eats it, and then she chokes on it.
And that's like a super dramatic, dragged out scene where somebody's trying to chop off their own private parts. And then it kind of like lost on them and nobody cares. It's like so many of these scenes.
He's such an American private parts. Just say he's.
I'm gonna say some horrible things later. So I'm trying to like, dilute the language a little bit.
Well, what else would we be cutting off?
Well,
anyway,
you got the point. So that was.
It's yeah, okay. I take it. It's not the best part of the book, but as I said, it just kind of ties it all together. It's absurd, sure, but I think it's kind of making the point of that playing the victim for fame seems to be a common theme these days. So I don't know, maybe it's ahead of its time. But...
I get it all. I get all that, and so, but I didn't know it was so much in the book. And at the like halfway through, and then especially near the ending, I was so tired of this. I was just like, okay, so who's gonna get like done something awful to them again? And yeah, okay. So the story ends with Mr. Wittier coming back and revealing that it's all a ploy, and he's been watching them, and there are cameras. And he also mentions that this is not the first group he's locked up, and they are not different to any of the previous groups, and he's disappointed or something.
Yeah, it's like third time. Yeah, they never seem to learn. They all do the same thing.
And then he leaves with Mrs. Somebody, but doesn't succeed because the people are upset, so they drag her back in and lock themselves up to wait to be rescued and have their plan come through.
Well, yeah, him and Miss Sneezy form a kind of a bond, and he's going to leave with her, but they decide that no, because if you leave now, how the amount of fame or fortune we'll get is going to be diminished, so we have to suffer more. So they basically grab her and pull her back into the compound and break the lock.
So he leaves, he's like, I'm out, and they just lock themselves in and suffer more, and that's the end.
Well, I think he's pushed out and he can't even get back in because it's basically become inaccessible.
I was wondering if this is not the first time he's done it, but who cleans up the bodies and everything? Like, how does that work?
Probably one of the nurses he's bribed.
Oh my god.
You don't want me to dob you in? I got some extra work for you to do.
Okay.
So, anyway.
Okay, so let's look at the stories, I guess. I'm just gonna go one by one. So the summary says,
why do we have to do cuts again?
There are 23 most horrifying, hilarious, mind-blowing, stomach-churning tales you've ever encountered. Do you feel that that's true?
Yeah. What was the second one? Hilarious?
Yes, also. Horrifying, hilarious, mind-blowing. Was there anything mind-blowing?
I think the whole story is a mindfuck, that's for sure. No. I guess the last story about Miss Sneezy is a bit kind of supernatural.
I guess, kind of
weird, conspiracy-like. But it's not mind-blowing. And there is another kind of supernatural tale about the missing link as well. But no, not mind-blowing, just...
surprising and horrifying, yes. Was any of it funny?
Yes.
Okay.
All of it.
Of course. To Paul, this is the peak point of hilarity and comedy gold. So I get it.
Champagne comedy, yes.
Peak comedy, yes. Okay, so I'll just...
All right, let's go.
Let's just go through all of them and let's just see which one we liked and didn't like. I'm curious which ones you liked a lot. Yeah, so Guts, I went to say, so that's the first one. Please listen to our episode 24. I'm never talking about this ever again. So,
and we also did later on the Earl of Slander. We did as well.
We did only 3, I think, right?
Yes. Yeah, we did 3, yes. We did 4, but someone melted down.
So I'm going to at least mention all of them so the people have a right to know. And if I do, then it means I will never have to talk about this ever again in my life, is the plan.
Until part 3. Maybe you can do a whole podcast series about Guts. Analyze each story.
I was considering that, but I don't want to do that. So no.
We could be successful.
No.
Okay. All right. Let's go.
So story number 2 is called Footwork. And it's about a reflexologist who is super good about secret techniques, how to massage people's feet to the point of killing them, and also making them come.
Yes, I was going to say she learns ways to give you amazing orgasm too. So what happens to her?
Yeah, I don't want to like super describe what happens, but she gets into some conundrum and she has to leave the business and blah blah. But I like this story. I think it was very easy to follow. I think it wasn't horribly disgusting, and it was interesting to read through.
Yeah, so she's a real hippie, and she gets tied up with her more kind of high class friend she used to be a student together, I think, and they get caught up in some kind of assassination or something.
Yeah,
it's a pretty clean story, to be honest.
Number 2, recommend it. I like this one.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, sure.
Do you believe there is such a masseuse you can find?
I've been looking, but so far no luck.
I saw a post recently that in Japan you can hire like a grandma masseuse.
Oh god.
She's going to really, really like hard massage out your nuts in your balls, like in your ball sack. Have you heard about that?
No. Where have you read this?
I can send you links. Like, it's a thing.
I don't. What? No, I don't need the link. My balls are very soft. Thank you very much.
And somebody, they were like people. Either this is like a group joke online, like people trolling, or this is an actual thing. I can't tell. And people keep saying the same, like, "Oh yeah, I thought this was bullshit, and then I went for it, and I really, really, really tried to like enjoy it, but it was super painful." Yeah. But then I went again, and it was much better. And then after having done it a few times, like, why did you come back, by the way? But anyway, after having done it a few times, he said, the guy said that he woke up like so relaxed. It's completely changed his life. He's got like a raging erection in the morning wood every day. And it's like the best thing that could have happened to him. And it's like a thing that everybody recommends. And it's like you can find articles about this. So do you believe this is a thing?
Why don't you send it? Seriously, I'm being serious. Send the link to Chuck. I'm sure he can write something about it. Do it. If you don't, send it to me and I'll fucking send it to him.
Yeah, so I don't believe this is real, but it's apparently possible to find.
Okay.
Would you do it?
No. Don't need grandma to massage my nuts.
Because they know how to do it. They're young. They don't know. They don't have the experience. They could hurt you.
It's fucked up. All right, next story.
I should have said in the beginning, and I failed, like some kind of warning that this is gonna be graphic content. So if you don't want to listen to that, please leave. But it's too late by now.
You did. So you should do it again because it seemed to work. It actually gets people to listen.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
So number 3, it's called Green Room. I didn't like this one at all. It's about a studio in the morning, and people are trying to like betray each other and one up each other, and trying to like tell themselves, tell like basically win an argument and be a better person in the news show. I couldn't care about this. Do you remember?
Yeah, I think this was kind of like not the worst, but it's the lowest ranked story for me. It's kind of nothing. It's a nothing kind of story.
It should have been like a gut punch, like who betrayed what, who, where, how, and how it means what, and I couldn't care. So okay.
Yeah, but the character later in the main story becomes kind of a bit more interesting, but after that, yeah, the short story is kind of quite dull. I thought.
Okay,
so yeah, she's promoting like an exercise equipment or something.
So number 4 is called Slumming. This is one of my favorites. I'm 100% sure this happens. So what happens is that a very, very rich and bored couple, they don't know what to do with themselves. So they go out and they just pretend to be homeless. And they have the best time being homeless. And I also really like the theme throughout the short story where they keep saying like the opposite. And they keep saying like it's the new thing. Like having nothing is the new rich. And being unknown and anonymous is the new famous and stuff like that. Kind of flipping the art's life on its own head.
Yeah, and kind of, I suppose, experiencing what the others have or don't have in this case.
Yeah, so I feel like there has to be people doing this somewhere. Like I feel like this is a thing that people do. Just pretend being homeless and just try to blend in and have like an adventure. Definitely. I also like the sentiment that the dirtier, smellier, and more unappealing you are, the more invisible you get, and it's a good trick to get in places. So I think that's absolutely true. Like
that's
if you want to be ignored, in life. Yeah. And I was expecting something awful to happen. I was like dreading the whole story through, like what's gonna be the awful thing that happens, and only thing that happens is that somebody else who is a rich person pretending to be homeless gets kidnapped or something, and they witness it, and they can't say anything because they would be found out as people who pretend to be homeless.
Yeah, so they've kidnapped someone who's quite, I think, wealthy or something. I think there's a murder or something happened at
Yeah,
the time
it's
as
awful,
well.
but it's not like as awful as I was expecting. I was expecting them to go
No.
through something terrible.
Well, the spook is kind of like an ocean of waves, I guess, sort of up and down. Yeah, so it sort of sets it up for that. Well, she's now on the run basically to because she's fearing for her life that these people are going to probably try to off her.
Yeah. So number 5 is called Swan Song, and this is about a journalist who kind of gets into the like underground of journalism and does horrible things to become a famous journalist. So he kind of causes the things he writes about. He keeps is explaining like how this is a normal thing. Like if you want an exciting article, then the only thing to be a good.
We did this one.
This one. Yeah, okay.
This is Sterilus. This is the one with the guy who planted the child pornography.
Yeah.
On the childhood star. Yeah.
Okay, let's move on then.
Yes, we did that one. So you started talking about it. I was like, wow, this sounds very PG and clean.
Deja vu.
And then I was like, wait, oh nope, that's not that's not how the story went down.
Okay, number 6. It's called Dog Years. So this is the backstory about Mr. Wittier, and we find out he's only 13 years old and he suffers from something called progeria. Is it correct pronunciation?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and I kind of briefly explained about him in the first podcast we did, that he's basically just fucking and blackmailing all these nurses because he's actually 13 years old. And but he looks like an old man because of this condition. So
this is the right level of like disgusting, vile shit I was expecting. So very much not disappointed with this one.
But he looks like an old man, but he's like smoking pot and then like coming all over these women's faces, and I was just laughing. It's like, so much energy. Anyway, he's 13. Of course, that's why he's got so much energy. He's 13 years old boy.
Yep.
Fucking hell.
I was reading this, and I was imagining you reading it. In my mind, I was like, sure, you're loving this so much. Like, this is the story for Paul.
I read an excellent, like, hypothetical question the other day about someone posted a question about on the Make-A-Wish Foundation. So if there's a 13-year-old boy who's a virgin, and his last like request is, I want to have sex before I die, should that wish be granted? Yes, either with a prostitute who's like an adult prostitute or a child prostitute because he's 13. So, and some people are really disgusted by the whole thing, like, oh, that's terrible. It's like, man, if I was 13, my biggest nightmare would be fucking dying of virgin. Boys are just super like hormonal, of course.
Yep.
You know, that's what they want. But anyway, yeah, so he's full of spunk, this one.
That's definitely a discussion about ethics nobody wants to start. So yeah.
No.
So this story, very, very much what I was expecting from this book. Not at all boring.
No, definitely.
So number 7 is called Ambition, and it's about an artist who sneaks like artworks into museums and then kind of pretends he's a famous artist, and then things escalate and he has to murder an artist to like not be found out and he be the famous artist. So he kind of like steals the art from him.
So it becomes kind of like a big conspiracy theory that this is how famous artists became famous.
And then he starts being hired for murdering other artists that need to be get rid of, so other artists could be famous.
Yeah, and I like the backstory of this, how he sort of initially went to see like the Mona Lisa and was so disappointed, and then started like doing this like stencil art, bit like kind of a Banksy kind of thing before Banksy was popular. And then I forgot how he started, you said, sneaking art into museums, kind of doing that sort of guerrilla art, I guess you call it.
Yep.
But yeah, again, I think it's kind of a bit ahead of its time in terms of
this one was pretty clever.
Art.
I like this one too, and wasn't too disgusting, so I wasn't squeamish.
No, it's just a weird conspiracy one. It's fun.
Yep. So number 8 is When I Got Really Sick on the Train. With this one, this made me very disgusted. It's called post-production. You can talk about this one, so I don't have to be disgusted.
Can you jog my memory a bit? Oh, it's about Tess Clark, so the assistant of Mr. Whittaker. Is that when the husband and her decide to make a porn film?
Yes.
They, I remember this. They try to make, because that's where all the big bucks are, trust me. And so they get all like fake tans and maybe she gets like a tit job or something as well.
Yes, they keep
Yeah.
escalating, and at first they like all look normal, but then they like trying to make it more and more professional production value stuff, and it gets
And
more
they're
and
like,
more insane, disgusting, and I was like I was
so
suffering so much for this.
so when they're fucking, they got like a really creepy looking smile on their faces and stuff because they're trying to look like they're enjoying it and everything,
Yeah.
but just comes off like a nightmare.
And then they finally watch it at the end. Like they spend I don't know how long,
Yeah.
maybe like a month, just filming and filming and filming and filming, and they like quit their job and they're running out of money.
Yeah.
And they're like desperate and they're trying to like make it more and more professional in production and super high quality values and like makeup and everything. And then they finally watch it after the end, and it's like the most disgusting thing. And
they divorce or something.
And I was like, oh no.
This is a lesson again ahead of its time. Don't make a sex tape, kids.
Well, I guess do, but don't do like the things around what they did. Like that was insane.
Well, okay, don't copy what you see in porn because that's not real life. That's fantasy, children.
Well, even then, like if you do it like a reasonable manner, what they did was they just kept doing it worse and worse and worse and more extreme, and they didn't stop for 1 second to consider if what they're trying to achieve is even meaningful.
Yeah, this is one story that probably disturbed me actually, because I just imagine like two Joker-looking people like screwing.
Yes,
and
it's awful. Like the
sounds
detail
like awful,
described in this one really made me I don't know, gag. It's bad.
And the part where they like when they're fucking each other, they're just imagining like, oh, all the money I'm gonna get,
exactly,
all the things I'm gonna buy and stuff like this.
This made me feel so bad. I was the whole time I was like, oh no,
yeah.
Oh, no. And then on top of it, all the descriptions made me so sick. I was like, fucking end this story.
Yeah, I did kind of feel sorry for them actually.
This one was one of the like most reaction getting out of me like after guts.
Yeah, this one was a bit depressing to be honest. Yeah.
Okay, so number 9, Exodus. This one we tried to talk about in our previous recording, and then we cut it out because we can't talk about this.
Oh, yes.
So this involves a police station.
You accidentally buys like one of the real dolls, like instead of the dolls that like have like buttons as eyes and kind of thing for genitalia or things like that. But someone actually ordered a real one. Oh, she did actually. Didn't she?
Yeah, I think so.
By mistake. And
the dolls start disappearing, and horrible things happen to them, and then they want to prevent that, so they put things in them, and it's even worse.
She wanted to prevent it, so she started feeling protective over the doll, and she started putting razor blades in its like vagina and things like this. And cops would come in, dump it on the desk, like really pissed off, and with cuts on the mouth and stuff.
Why this book is hilarious, because it's so bad, it's so over the top, and it's so disgusting that it's even funny. It's almost like I can't deal with this.
Yeah,
this is what Paul is here for. I think this is like the perfect story for it.
So she comes along to the writers' camp, and she brings her cat as well, or a cat called Cora Reynolds, who ends up meeting a terrible fate too. That kind of upset me because I'm a cat lover, but yeah, someone ate the cat. Anyway, so if you love cats, maybe don't read the book.
Okay,
that's my only warning. All the other shit, I don't care. Cats.
Yeah,
that's too far. Yeah.
So number 10, Punch Drunk.
This one's funny too.
It was actually funny. Like,
hilarious.
It wasn't that disgusting, and it was actually funny. So I have to give it to this one. So there's an ex-marine, like a soldier, and he dresses up as a drag queen, and he.
But originally, a woman, like a former woman marine, was trying to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. That's okay.
So he dressed. Yeah. So they're trying to raise money. So and originally, a woman was going to say, "Okay, you can punch me as long as you pay me $50," kind of thing. And then, kind of first punch, he's like, "No, I'm out. I can't do this." So the former marine guy says, "Okay, I'm going to dress up and in drag and lip sync and to raise money for funds to start a war." Originally, when they started doing it, I don't think they were getting that much attention. But when they put like Celine Dion on or started lip syncing to that, it just generates a huge line of men who want to punch him in the face. Yep. Anyway,
I'm sure this happened somewhere. This sounds like a real story.
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure it does. Does he actually start the war? I can't remember the ending of this because it's such a long time.
He was just trying kind of like start a protest or like against religion. So next one is called Ritual. This one I was horrified what will happen, and I wasn't disappointed. I was very horrified even more afterwards. So this is a family where they have some kind of uncle like gathering in the garden, and the children keep watching the uncles, and the uncles keep laughing, and they have this like phrase that they keep saying. Every time they say it, everybody laughs like crazy, but nobody knows what it means. Do you remember?
Yes, yeah, when you told me about it, I can remember the part.
I'm not sure how they pronounce it. It's like shuruk or something.
Shruk, yeah, something.
And there's like a side plot going on when somebody trying to marry somebody else, and I don't remember it very well. But it's
that's the character called the matchmaker, who's basically hired trying to find a hot prostitute with a big dick to ruin his girlfriend or something like that. I don't.
And then we finally find out at the end when the son or whoever grows up to be 18, so they can finally tell him the family secret. And one of the uncles, before the son leaves to the army or somewhere, he tells him what the sound meant, and it's the most awful thing. I can't even say it.
Yeah, it's about a POW accident, or incident, I should say incident, with a sadistic guard and one of the female prisoners. But yeah, I don't want to go into too much detail about it.
If you want to be shocked and you haven't read this, so look up this story. It's very short. If you like don't believe us that it's shocking, then you can find out for yourself. Is what I'm gonna say. Because I was expecting something like that, and I was not let down by the reveal. So number 12 is called Nightmare Box. This one I couldn't.
Oh, I like this one. Okay.
So the Nightmare Box I couldn't like get behind. I was trying to even like look up some explanation or something, and people seem to really love this story online. I don't get it. Like I didn't get it. So they keep talking about some kind of secret that's locked in a box, and if you open it, you go crazy. It's kind of like King in Yellow. King in Yellow vibes.
No. So it's a box that is kind of mysterious. I thought you'd like this because it's kind of like a Hellraiser thing.
Yeah.
So it has this ticking mechanism in it, and once it stops, if you look inside, there's a little keyhole, and you can look inside, and you'll see something that will kind of just basically break your brain. So yeah, it's kind of like a King in Yellow kind of thing, I guess. Probably why I really liked it as well. And her Tess Clark, who was in post-production, the woman that made the porn with her husband, that was her daughter who looked into the Nightmare Box. Do you know that?
I forgot.
Okay, so the one who made the porn, her daughter is the one that looked into the Nightmare Box.
Okay.
And then her daughter kind of just breaks, and then she joins a writer's retreat. It's the same one run by Mr. Whittaker.
I see. I missed that.
So, yeah, so that's why Tess Clark has joined this writer's retreat to see what's actually happened. But eventually we learn later that Tess basically killed her daughter with an overdose and just hid the body in the forest. And the police found the body and kind of put like a camera and microphone over it to watch. And eventually, the killer returns, which is Tess, to kind of talk to her daughter. Somehow I think she escapes. She becomes Mr. Whittaker's assistant, basically to hide away.
That part I remember, but yeah, overall the mystery.
Okay, but if you realize it's all linked together, it's quite good.
Okay,
but anyway,
in that sense, I guess it plays a part. So number 13, Civil Twilight or something. Civil Twilight. I wrote that wrong. I guess it's Twilight. So this is the bowling ball. So
no, it's Sister Vigilante. Yes, all right. Yeah. So the big noise coming down from mysterious sound that's killing people, but it's a bowling ball.
This one was like creatively described. I like the kills are very, very interestingly described, like written. So I like this one, and
it was okay, but I didn't really enjoy it.
She's basically a murderer with the bowling ball, and her excuse is that if people share a common fear, then they live a better life. So if there's nothing to fear in the city, then people are kind of like bored of stuff. But if they have something to be worried about and like something to hold together and be protect each other from, then they can actually live a happier life. So she justifies herself as like the person who makes average lives better. It's quite twisted.
I see.
So this one was good.
Hence her name. Yeah.
So then product placement. This is the chef who murders restaurant critics and then blackmails like a knife company.
Chef assassin.
And he keeps talking about knives.
Yes. I really like this one actually.
I really, really got sick after this story. Not this story, but after the story when he starts cutting up some dead bodies in the mansion.
Yeah.
And they keep describing like the blue line spreading and everything. And I was on the train again, and I was really sick.
Okay. No, I just enjoyed the letter he wrote. How he constantly praised the knife company. Your knives are really great, and it'd be a shame that like a serial killer is using them. So give me some money and I'll disappear kind of thing. Yeah, he's kind of a character in the main story as well. He pops up quite a lot because he's useful, I guess.
Yeah. So 15, speaking bitterness, we also talked about, and we deleted from our previous recording like a long time ago. This is the Women's Assault Support Group.
No. I kept this in.
What?
I did not delete this. This is
it in? I thought it wasn't in.
Okay. Yes, no, it's in. You were just so traumatized, you just don't want to remember it. It was in. I made you talk about it, and I forced you to speak about it. So go back and listen to that. I don't have to talk about
it again. But I think that this is something that nowadays is very important for everybody to read. So
yeah, we talked about the same topic, exactly the same.
So please listen to our episode 24. So let's move to 16, called Crippled. So
we talked about that one too.
This one too.
Yep. The guy who was doing the insurance workers' compensation. Yeah, I remember talking about that one.
Number 17 is called Dissertation. This one is one of my favorites. This one was about hormones and people turning into Sasquatches. Sasquatches. That's the plural.
Yeah, there's a girl who's trying to get onto this reservation to investigate about the Sasquatch, or the link between a tribe and the Sasquatch. And what's the link with the hormones?
So it starts as an investigation, and it starts like discussing what it would mean if there was an actual Sasquatch, like Bigfoot or something. And then it like flips the point of view, and they start like being very sympathetic and apologetic, like for people who have some kind of bodily disability or something. Like, what would it actually be like if you were a Sasquatch in the modern society? Is the story, and I found it was amusing. They mention how if you look at salmon, for example, so when they have a different phase of their life, they completely change their body type, body shape, and they look like completely different fish. So it's not so far-fetched that something like that would happen with hormones to like other creatures and beings and even people. And if people were going through something like that, modern society would completely not be okay with any of it. Number 18, Poster Child. So this is about Mrs. Clark and her daughter Cassandra.
Yeah, that's all linked together with the murder. And I kind of mentioned it before, how she basically killed her child. As the daughter kind of reappeared from the writer's camp, like missing fingernails and seemed even more fucked up. So and she just couldn't get through to her, and she became quite sort of unbearable. So basically killed the daughter by overdose.
So then number 19, Something's Got to Give. This is about a woman psychic who can see things, like has visions when she touches objects, and she has...
I didn't really enjoy this one much.
Yeah, this one I didn't like too. So she's got all kinds of weird things, and one of them is the unborn child of Marilyn Monroe or something.
Yeah, and a jar.
But then it's all fake and it's all made up, and none of it means anything. Yeah. So it was kind of like, why did we do this when it means nothing?
It's just another character, I guess, to add to the story. Yeah, so she's got an excuse to be on the run from the police.
So number 20, hot potting. This is when I got really, really sick again.
Oh, I like this one. That's what I said. Read this book in nonsense. You enjoy it.
So this is about hot springs and spas and people basically being boiled alive and enjoying it. Why else would they do it? They could have gotten out.
No. I think the character is telling the story, the Baroness Frostbite. She's missing her lips, and she tells this story when she's working in the bar in this place. There's all these like hot springs, but you can't go in them. You'll basically be boiled alive. But things I remember about this story is kind of the graphic detail of people accidentally going into them, and
this graphic detail was one of the worst. I was so sick.
Yeah, and the one where the guy showed up. He opened his door and his dog jumped in, and he jumped in after his dog to try and rescue the dog. And
this is again one of gross. Like this is probably the second most disgusting thing in the whole book to me. Like the when they filmed the porn movie is like number 3, and Guts is number 1 to me.
Really?
Which one is the most disgusting for you after Guts?
The porn movie. The porn movie is just like, that's just reality for me. Anyway, no. You should see my face during sex, coughing and like. Anyway, no, this one's probably the most disgusting after Guts. The most disgusting after Guts. Okay.
They also explain why Lady Frostbite is missing lips and stuff. It's awful.
Yeah, she kind of rescued a guy that was quite a preachy religious zealot guy who had an accident in the
It
forest.
was so bad. I was so close to the end of the book, the ending of the book, and it happened again. I was like, why do this to me, Paul? Why is this happening again? I thought I was at the end. I thought I was like numb to all this bullshit already. This story.
Yeah. It's pretty
one
gross.
of the grossest things I've heard in my life.
Imagine a pig being boiled. This is the story. Yeah.
So then we have our 3 last stories, and all of them are kind of part of the main plot. Number 21 is called Cassandra, and that's again Mrs. Clark and her daughter. And
yeah, that kind of all blends into one to me. But anyway,
it's just like in parts. So how she disappeared, and then we're missing the fingernails, and then she was part of the whole ordeal with Mr. Wittier.
Yes, previous writers' workshop. Yes, so that's why Tess is here to basically find out what happened.
And then 22 is called Evil Spirits. This is about Mrs. Sneezy and how she carries an incurable super disease from a secret government facility, but it's probably not true.
Yeah, and her and her father used to collect like tombstones or something like this, or something like that. And I think they went to some area or something. So maybe she picked up some kind of weird old disease or something, or virus or something. But yeah, she's now isolated in this island.
Yeah, so this one was okay. I don't remember it too much, but it wasn't like a highlight to me.
No, but she's kind of one of the main characters that kind of at the end. But yeah, she escapes from this island somehow, which is part of the story. And
the last one, 23, is called Obsolete, and this is Mr. Wittier's story. So it's like the last part. So we talked about all the setup. When that was one of the previous stories, and this is like to wrap everything up, like give all the backstory about the writer's retreats and what he's doing with people and how he's doing the and it kind of morphs into the ending where he's trying to leave and the writers in the retreat like lock themselves up again. The book kind of ends like weirdly. I was trying to understand what's the takeaway message. So I was like the ending. Like I guess he just like leaves and that's it. Like he doesn't care.
Yeah, it's a bit abrupt, I guess.
And I didn't understand about his illness. Does it mean he's gonna live a short life or not?
I think, yeah.
But how short? Is it like a few years? Or
I think they don't live very long at all, actually.
He just keeps doing this until he dies because that's what he likes. I don't get it. I was trying to, or I was expecting there to be some twist or some explanation to what he does with all the writers who die in his retreat. Like something has to happen somehow somewhere, and this is not the first time he has to get rid of the bodies somehow. So I was expecting there to be like, oh, by the way, I own a toxic like dump, some kind of power plant, and I melt all the bodies in sewage. I don't know, something, but it didn't go there. And I kept thinking like, if this is the guy. It's like plan. Surely he planned how to get rid of all this, and I was expecting him to be like, "Oh, so they locked themselves in again? Perfect, idiots! I'm gonna gas them and then get rid of the bodies as usual. Goodbye, the end." But no, he just left, and that was it. So I didn't expect that.
I think you're overthinking things as usual.
Okay.
I just accept this as the story and how it ended, and okay, that was a nice atmosphere. So. On with my life.
Please, may there never be a sequel to this book ever again.
I'm sending him the link to the ball massaging. So can you make something out of this, please? There's grandmas in Japan massaging balls. I'm sure there's something. Chuck, please write Haunted 2. What would be the character's name?
Oh no. It would be Sackman Small Boy.
Grandma Sack Boy. Oh god. All right. I think that's enough.
Well, thanks for being here after a long time, Paul. I hope that you approve that I have pushed through and suffered through this whole fucking book. And
finally,
hopefully, I will never have to read this ever again in my life.
Until he writes the sequel, after I send him this link.
Any final words before we finish to the listeners who's still here?
No, check out the first podcast we did of this. And if you enjoyed it, maybe... but you don't want to read the book.
Did I seem less squeamish this time around?
Yeah, well... Definitely compared to last time.
Okay, I made it.
Of course, yeah.